Trump is never out of trouble. Even if Biden comes and sits in the White House, that doesn't change. Struggling with lawsuits, Trump said that he was in danger of being arrested, and on the other hand, interestingly, he said, "I will end the Russia-Ukraine war. But I will not tell you the way. I've written many times before." Before Trump was even elected, a power in the USA was watching both the future president and his team. It was a deep state operation big enough to be this movie in the future. Even if Trump was elected, he could not protect many of his men. His team was melting away. Conflict was still at its height in the White House. The Russia file opened for Trump and his team was not actually as reflected to the press. In other words, Trump's closeness with Russia was not because he wanted to do business there. An important part of the fight was wanted to be taken over the Jewish community. Prosecutor Mueller and the power behind it chose this path. Let's open. Trump's son-in-law Jared Kushner was a member of Chabad, an international Hasidic movement most people have never heard of. The relationships within this structure were not well known. Putin's closeness and interest in this movement, too. Putin did not hide that he wanted to be the boss of this movement. At least he had a dream to have a big stake and influence. For this reason, he asked for help from two important figures of the Russian deep state. From Lev Leviev and Roman Abramovich. Action has been taken. Under the leadership of Rabbi Beryl Lazar, they set out to establish the Federation of Jewish Communities in Russia. Lazarus would later become known as Putin's rabbi. While these were happening in Russia, Trump, known as an important businessman, was getting closer with the Bayrak Sapir sign led by Soviet immigrants Tevfik Arif, Felix Sater and Tamir Sapir, who had close ties to Chabad. He was partnering. They were getting into trouble on a project in Manhattan. Trump was advancing. The ties between him and Chabad continued to build up. In 2007, Trump was hosting Sapir's daughter's wedding in Mar-a-Lago. A few months later, Leviev was hosting the Trumps to sign the agreements in Moscow. Ivanka and Kushner were also there. The meeting was taking place in a special place for the Chabad movement. Ivanka had a close relationship with Abramovich's wife, Dasha Zhukova, and they became close enough to go on family trips. The last leader of this globally influential movement was Rabbi Menachem Mendel Schneerson, who died in 1994. He was believed to be the Messiah. Kushner was studying law at Harvard and was becoming the most active student in the Chabad house. Groom Kushner visited Schneerson's grave with Ivanka 3 months before Trump was elected. They prayed for Trump. According to the leaked information, Felix Sater was saying, "We can make Trump the president of the USA whenever we want." The partnership between them is also growing, and I think Kushner was buying a majority stake in the old New York Times building on West 43rd Street from Leviev for $295 million. Continue. Names like Boris Berezovsky, who appeared before Putin and his friends, were also being purged. It was alleged that Abramovich's shares in Russian oil giant Sibneft were extorted from Berezovsky. Berezovsky, who was on good terms with Yeltsin, was at odds with Putin. He was running. His contacts were people like Litvinenko and Markelov, who were anti-Putin. One morning he was found dead in his home in London. There was no obstacle in front of Moscow. The Chabad movement was now on its way more freely. This unknown but effective movement extended to the USA via London. The names and contacts were already there. They have also been extremely effective in the formation of global policies. Nat Rothschild was one of the important members of this structure. Let's go over. Even while dealing with lawsuits, Trump was pointing out whether he would use this affinity when he said, "I will finish the Russia-Ukraine war." Was this the way she wouldn't tell anyone? Should Prosecutor Mueller's request to stop Trump with the Russia file actually be interpreted as taking a step against this move? There were many interesting points in the work. One of the special names of the movement was Marina Abramovich. There was no one who didn't come with Marina and didn't run to her parties. Everyone from Jacob Rothschild to Soros' son was there. Even Marina's older brother, Velimir Abramovich, was very active in Tesla. He was one of the names Elon Musk leaned on. J.P. Morgan was also standing in the business as a power occupying important layers. As I have written often before, Jeffrey Epstein was also an important name in this movement. It was his strength. He was killed. I don't know who was behind the move, which we can roughly summarize like this. However, global policies don't form in associates, in party halls. There was a power standing in line to finish him, just as there was a supporter of Trump. These were clashing over the world, and that shadow was falling everywhere. A huge crowd struggling to maintain their daily life remained unaware of what was going on. The fight we saw in the USA never and could not fit inside the USA. It was spreading everywhere. This fight was seen in every country. It determined the rhythm and intensity of the country. While these were happening, Queen II. Elizabeth was dying. Charles would be king. And King Charles, who will be crowned on May 6, was choosing two centers of the EU for his first visit. He could not go to Paris because of the events. War power didn't want it to be there. But the king was landing in Germany and was very warmly received. There seemed to be an air of regret from Brexit. German President Steinmeier says, "The day when Britain started the difficult process of leaving the EU on March 29, 2017 was very painful for me. Exactly 6 years later, we are turning a new page today." And axis at sign change. 74-year-old King Charles was going to Germany for the 40th time. Speaking German better than a German, the king knew how to garner applause. These were very strange developments. Obviously, something was being cooked. Our task was to ask, how would this reflect in Turkey, was to answer the question.